know what they look? Maybe we're asking the wrong thing. A dozen generations removed.
What?
They think we're bugs?
Maybe we're...
Okay.
Why should I get bent out of shape about what the... So you think 400 years ago, be doing someday?
Awesome. I get it.
Guess I don't worry about the far future that much. Yeah, of course. That's fair.
Oh, thank...
And that one kid has more Prius.
Watch it.
Sorry about Nora.
Am I?
I know your pal Jin. You two chat about. One of my men
Yo and Jez.
hit Nora was under autonomous control. We've reason to believe that someone... You.
Who are they? What's going on?
5 minutes, sir.
Destination.
Someone will...
Tell Nora's family.
Well, I guess meeting you was terrible.
Is this chili pepper?
He loves
Better than anyone.
Just pretend his brain is...
Give me that. Besides... No, you won't.
You can't stop me.
No.
A difficult day. I hope we can make things straight from the top. I promise.
On a class trip.
The meditation room.
What ceremony?
This is a moment.
Wearing what he's wearing.
Meeting of the Planetary Defense Council. We are at, and we must defend ourselves. Every meeting, whenever they want, whenever they choose, than we are. We win. I was mistaken when I spoke before. We are not all powerful. Wallfacer project. These plans entirely in the... We shall call faces will be granted international laws their behavior may be. Hu Bo Lin. He has proven in Wallfacer, Professor experience fighting and Durand.
If you please.
Alive in human history.
Jovan Adipose character Saul Durand packs a bowl while pundits on TV debate the probable arrival of Santi. A woman with a towel on steps out of the shower. It's evident right away that Saul can't recall her name. She requests that he provide her an Uber. Outside, Saul discusses how far into the future the Santi's arrival actually is. He mentions the location of his ancestors 400 years ago and inquires of the woman what her ancestors were contemplating 400 years ago. Saul gets knocked off his feet by a skateboarder. Then a neighboring automobile is struck by an SUV. In order to escape the collision, a second automobile swerves onto the sidewalk. The woman gets hit by this automobile and dies instantly. Saul can still recall her name, Nora. Later on, D.A. Shi, Benedict Wong questions Saul. He expresses regret for Nora. He's not precisely a cop, D.A. Shi responds when Saul asks whether he is. D.A. Shi says he's sad about Jack and Will's passing and that he knows Jin and was an old friend of Orby's. He inquires as to what Yi Wenji discussed with Saul in the cemetery. Before departing for China, Yi Wenji only had one meeting, according to D.A. Shi, Saul. There, she and one of D.A. Shi's soldiers were killed. Saul finds this surprising. D.A. Shi notes that Saul was recently the target of a murder attempt. Autonomous control was in place for all three of the autos in the collision. D.A. Shi informs Saul that they have good grounds to think that the accident was caused by someone, or something breaking into the automobiles. D.A. Shi claims that the skateboarders knocking him aside is the only reason he lived. Saul claims he has no idea what's happening. D.A. Shi accepts him. A guard appears, bringing with him a bulletproof suit. Saul is told to put it on by D.A. Shi. Soon after, D.A. Shi and Saul arrive at a private jet in a motorcade. Armed guards are stationed everywhere. D.A. Shi giggles while watching movies on his phone throughout the journey. Saul requests additional details. However, D.A. Shi can only inform him that his duty is to accompany Saul to his location. D.A. Shi tells Saul that word got out to Nora's parents that she passed away in a terrible accident. He advises Saul to get some rest. Saul chooses to open the window shade instead. Military planes are flying beside the aircraft outside. Thomas Wade, Liam Cunningham receives a packet of produce seeds from Jin Cheng, Jess Hong at Witchwood Manor. She claims she wants their inclusion, as well as Will's brain, in the Stairway Project investigation. This is to ensure he has food in the event that they decide to clone him. Wade declines due of his weight. Jin promises to bring up the matter with a higher-ranking official. She threatens to resign when Wade tells her that there is no such person. Wade promises to save a seat for Jin for the Cape Canaveral launch, but Jin storms away. Saul admits to D.A. Shi that he didn't get any sleep when the plane landed. Josh Brenner's Sebastian Kent greets Saul and D.A. Shi. Kent admits that the day has been challenging but says he thinks things will get better. Saul, D.A. Shi, and Kent drive through New York City in a motorcade. The United Nations is where they are going. Kent takes Saul to the Dag Hammarskjöld-designed meditation chamber in the building. D.A. Shi claims he is wearing what he is wearing, even though a suit is waiting for Saul. Kent, Saul, and D.A. Shi enter the UN conference room simultaneously with the announcement of the Wallfacer project. The Sophan's omnipresence is brought up once more, and the Santi are talked about as potential enemies. The Secretary-General goes on to say, however, that the Sophans are not omniscient and do not understand what goes through people's minds. The Wallfacer project is now open. 3 people will be selected to devise independent strategies to fend off the Santi. The Santi won't be able to get to these people because they will hold these plans inside of them until the appropriate moment to carry them out. Wallfacers will have unrestricted access to vast resources, and as long as they don't break any international rules, nobody will be able to challenge any orders they issue. The 3 Wallfacers, General Hal Bolan, Professor Layla Arik, and Saul Durand, are introduced by the Secretary-General. The other 2 Wallfacers possess a wealth of military experience. Saul goes on stage with the other 2. Later, Saul admits their error to the Secretary-General. They won't know that for a time, she responds. He is reminded that the Santi are observing by the Secretary-General. According to the Secretary-General, the adversary is aware of his selection. They attempted to murder him for this reason. What if, Saul wonders, he says no. That's his right, she argues. He declines as a result. The Secretary-General claims to comprehend. She responds that he is free to do whatever when he asks if he may go. Saul exits the theater. D.A. Shi tells him in the foyer that it may be hazardous outside. Is it possible for D.A. Shi to acquire Saul a security team? Refusing, Saul declares that he is not a Wallfacer. Kent says they have no choice but to follow Saul's instructions. D.A. Shi begs to go on a stroll with him at least. Refusing, he walks out of the building. He gets shot before the UN can see him anymore. Jin leaves Will's goldfish alive at Witchwood with Edgar, her helper, in her absence. Edgar sends his best wishes for her success. Jin later steps onto a private tarmac aircraft. Wade, her lover Raj Varma, Samer Usmani, and a few other professionals are inside. After Varma pulls his suitcase out of the way, she passes the free seat and takes a seat by herself. Wade takes D.A. Shi's call and answers. Wade advises D.A. Shi to make sure it doesn't happen again. In Saul's hospital room is D.A. Shi. There's a news broadcast on TV concerning cicadas and their impact on crops. D.A. Shi cares to Saul when he awakens. He is told by D.A. Shi that he has a shattered rib and internal hemorrhage. He goes on to say D.A. Shi isn't doing his job if Saul is in the hospital. Since Saul refused to allow D.A. Shi to defend him, Saul claims it is not D.A. Shi's responsibility. When D.A. Shi asks Saul to let him guard him now, Saul responds. Saul concurs. He is told by D.A. Shi that the would-be assassin was captured by the NYPD. Saul expresses his desire to visit him. D.A. Shi queries why. Hunt your adversary, Saul responds. That's not his department, according to D.A. Shi. Still, he consents to speak with someone. Thanking him, Saul is told by Dashi that since he is a Wallfacer, Dashi has the last say in everything. Says Saul that he isn't a wallflower. Dashi simply gives him a grin. Varma approaches Jin discreetly on the aircraft. If she has dumped him, Varma queries. Jin claims she is not able to do this at this time. Varma claims that she is stranded on an aircraft with him and that he has granted her 5 hours. Jin acknowledges Will's involvement. She claims that she took Will's final moments, and it's doubtful that the initiative will succeed. Varma declares Will deceased. Jin counters that he is not, rather, he is a living brain. Santi also had the technology to reconstruct his body. Varma says he was adored by Jin. Jin declares her love for him, saying, he's still alive. Varma expresses hope that it would work. Saul is watching a news broadcast on himself in his hospital room. A knock on the door is heard. Dashi walks in with the potential killer. Saul requests to be left alone, but Dashi responds that the guy is an expert in his field. The assassin apologizes for his failure. According to Saul, he has given up his job as Wallfacer. He is not believed by the assassin. He goes on to say that Saul and the Santi are both above them. Saul queries his motivation for attempting to murder a stranger on the orders of strangers. Saying that he has gone to be a soldier in the army of the Lord, the assassin leaves. He then turns to go, grinning. Dashi waves for someone to lead him outside. Who does Dashi work for? Saul wonders. Reciting his credentials, Dashi states that the PDC is his present employment. Next he states that his current role is to keep Saul safe. I want to go home, says Saul. Though Dashi concedes that the route passes through Kent. When Kent walks into the room, Saul asks him what his work is. For the Planetary Defense Council, he serves as Saul's daily point of contact. Saul argues that he is no longer a Wallfacer. Of course not, sir, responds Kent. Why is Kent here still? Saul wonders. Kent restates that he is in charge of Saul's regular relationships. It sounds to Saul like they're not talking to one another. Kent again nods in agreement when Saul claims he's not a Wallfacer. Dashi stands by. I want to see the Secretary General, adds Saul. Saul informs the Secretary General in the UN meditation room that he is tired and wants to go home. The Secretary General notes that Saul might not be able to meet his new security standards at home. If he's not a Wallfacer, Saul queries why he requires security measures. Whether or not he is a true Wallfacer is a question that the Secretary General admits she is unsure of. What counts are the beliefs held by individuals or groups. She goes on to say that a Wallfacer works in the solitude of the mind. Nobody is aware of Saul's inner thoughts. It is not the Secretary General's fault if he did not desire the position. According to Saul, he has no idea how to combat aliens. Moreover, by the time the aliens show around, they will all have passed away. The Secretary General acknowledges having thought the same thing. She asserts that they should attempt nonetheless, because of their future selves. Saul queries why he was picked. The Secretary General informs him that the precise cause is unknown. He will have to come to his own conclusion, she says. They're taking a big risk on Saul, according to the Secretary General. Saul approaches Kent and Dashi in the UN lobby. To see his pal off, Saul claims he wants to travel to Cape Canaveral. Tatiana Haas, Marlo Kelly comes back to her camper in the woods with 2 food bags. However, the door is ajar when she gets there. She takes a handgun out. She discovers a white box with her name, identical to the one that came out of nowhere at Jack Rooney's home. A card with the words, "If one of us survives, all of us survive," is inside. A VR headgear is also present. Tatiana dons the protective gear. A menacing tune begins to play. Will's brain is placed into the rocket at Cape Canaveral. Wade informs Jin that Will's brain was used to contain the seed she requested. The countdown starts. The rocket takes off. Jin is watching, flooded with emotion. Varma is observing Jin. Kent, Saul, and Dashi enter the control room. Jin gives him a hug and inquires as to his safety in this place. Saul claims to be dressed in a bulletproof suit. Wade tells Dashi he was fortunate. He goes on to say that they genuinely want Saul gone. Dashi claims that people recognize his value since he is my enemy's enemy. Wade asks Dashi whether he's comfortable with him being shackled to that youngster for the rest of his life. Wade responds, no, when Dashi asks whether he has an option. Dashi responds that it's okay with him. Varma walks over to Saul and Jin and inquires about their well-being. After providing an update on Wool, Jin quickly leaves Varma. Dashi goes after Saul, and Saul goes after her. Jin queries whether Saul has spoken with Augie Salazar, Asa Gonzalez. He finds out why he hasn't. Both Jin and Augie, according to Jin, detest what they did to Will. Saul claims that Will made his decision. He claims Will adored her and would have done anything for her. Saul dreams about the day when someone will truly adore him. Jin suggests that it could already be done. Then she walks away from him. After pulling out his phone, Saul glances at it. Augie is located in Mexico's San Luis Potosi. She is describing how water may be cleansed of contaminants such as germs, parasites, and pesticides using nanofiber filters. The residents claim to already have effective filtration. However, Augie asserts that they wouldn't be facing a dysentery outbreak if they had effective filters. She then declines Saul's call and carries on assisting the locals. Jin surveys the NASA professors in Florida. She soon joins Wade, Saul, and the others in the control room within mission control to keep an eye on the probe's progress. They expel the first stage boosters. The sail spreads out when it is deployed. There is some cheering when Augie's sail functions as planned. The first nuclear weapon is approached by the probe. The countdown to the explosion starts. The first nuclear weapon goes off without a hitch. The probe starts to speed up. Further acceleration of the probe is achieved by the successful detonation of the second one. Now that he's flying, Saul remarks. The third explosion then goes off without a hitch. A cord breaks that connects the probe to the sail. Alarms go off. The probe starts to stray from its intended course. This implies that it won't get to the fourth and later nuclear weapons. There has been an irregularity, the commentator suggests. Jin starts to sob. Everyone is depressed. Wade speaks to Jin incoherently. The probe is shown in its last image disappearing into space. Wade's on a call on his jet. Giving Wallfacer Bolan anything he wants, he orders the man on the line. He reads a news story on how world leaders are reacting to the Wallfacer proposal. However, Safon's voice interrupts him, and soon after, he appears on a screen. They would have loved to meet Wall, according to Safon. If Wade's delicate humanity endures cryogenic storage, she goes on, they would like to meet. The plane's power is out. The engines sputter, and Wade is sucked into complete darkness. The lights return to flickering. Wade asserts that he must be doing something right if they are observing him. Safon concurs, he's a capable leader. She goes on to say that Wade is a part of their goal and should know that there will be a place for him when they get there. She disappears off the screen. However, after a moment, the lights flicker and she appears to be inside the plane with him. They will always be with Wade, according to Safon. They'll see anything they want him to see, she claims. Until the day of your death, she says. Wade watches a retinal countdown while she talks, which rapidly approaches 0. Sitting next to him is his own corpse, eyes gone and blood seeping from its sockets. Safon is no longer alive. A military transport jet continues to fly outside the aircraft. Jin sits at the pool at the Magic Beach Motel with Saul. Saul inquires about her estimate of Will's duration of floating. According to Jin, he will cross a star after 6,000 years. He could fall down the gravity well, but she doesn't think so. He is going to exit the Milky Way in another 5 million years. The two saddest-looking bastards are what Dashi calls them as he approaches. Saying, I can't take any Henry V bullshit, Saul orders him not to give him a speech. Dashi claims to have acted in a school play as Henry V. According to Saul, going through periods of depression can be a natural reaction to life. After losing a few fights, Dashi queries if he's giving up the war. He goes on to say that they managed to get the probe traveling more quickly than any artificial object has ever done. Jin states again that the expedition was unsuccessful. Have they ever seen the World War II movies when the Allies take off from aircraft carriers with their planes? Dashi wonders. Is it known how many pilots were lost until they got it right? He queries. They are still, according to Jin, a few million times slower than the Santee. Says Saul, people are sluggish, stupid, and easily killed. We're bugs, he says in closing. They're going for a drive, Dashi says. Dashi makes his way to a remote part of the Everglades. Exiting the vehicle, they go. They chirp and buzz. They are all over the place. Da Shi delivers his speech of culmination. People detest insects. Been attempting to get clear of them for ages. Pesticides sprayed from aircraft. To try to sterilize them, we bury poison beneath the surface. We zap, tread on, and swat them. Take a look around. They will remain in place. Da Shi pours out the remaining alcohol after drinking to the bugs. He informs them that they must return since they have job to accomplish. As the song intensifies, the camera pans back through the swarming cicadas.